All right, before we get cut off the air, Shane, how about this one? Now, there's another one. Could go either way, I think.
Yeah.
Auburn, Shane, at Vanderbilt. And why, Shane? Because we have fired Hugh Freeze's sorry ass. So I think Auburn's got new life. I really do. This could be a statement game for interim coach DJ Durkin. Yeah. Commodores favored by 6.5 at home. The over-under is 45.5 total points. 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 Central on the SEC Network. Man, Vanderbilt needs this one desperately. Yeah. They can't afford to lose another game if they want to make the college football playoff. Auburn, they still got bowl hopes on the line. And man, just ask Cousin Emily, Shane. There is renewed optimism on the plains, as there should be. And how about that, Shane? The series all-time tied at 22. So winner of this game leads the all-time series.
And everything I'm hearing, man, you talk about a locker room that may be a little rejuvenated. I think it could be Auburn. You always wonder about a coach getting fired and what it's going to be. I was worried about Florida because they're all moping around and throwing flowers and shit. And Auburn, total opposite. I think they cranked up some rap music day one and they said, let's do this thing. So I feel like there's a little bit of, what do we got to lose, right? You know, Vanderbilt's the one that has everything. We can be the damn, what's that green guy that steals all the gifts?
The Grinch.
The Grinch. Absolutely. Auburn could be the Grinch this year and still the playoff. You're talking about, hey, Tennessee. But if you lose to Auburn, it's over, right? And I feel like that is important for Auburn here. I feel like this is a weird-looking game, man. This is the rethinking everything. I've done everything. I've looked both sides of this thing, and yes, Vanderbilt should win the game. But, Mike, Vanderbilt won't win the game. I've got Auburn, Morristown Honda, with an interim coach traveling to Nashville and getting a win, 21, Vanderbilt 20. I feel like it's close, but I feel like I'm still sold. DJ Durkin's still there, man. This defense, the only good thing that's been happening with Auburn is still there. Now they just got to get a little life with offense, and maybe they had too many people in their ears. Now they can go out here and play some damn football, and I feel like this is a game that may catch people off guard.
And here I thought I hated Hugh Freeze. Oh, Shane calling for the outright upset. How much does this have to do with your walking, though?
Now I see it on the sideline. Everybody's like, Shane trying to get these miles down, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's right where I went. But, man, that'd be wild.
Yeah.
How concerned are you, though? No, what'd you say, 21-20?
Yeah. So not too confident.
I mean, I don't know that Auburn can score 21 points, do you?
Not Hugh Freeze's Auburn.
Right.
But who says defense can't have a score here? I'll be honest with you, man. Vanderbilt went to Texas cocky and arrogant, and you better damn believe Auburn just lost their coach, right? They don't have a quarterback. You kind of teed that one up, but I feel like Vanderbilt's thinking the same thing. Like, we control our day. We'll just go out here and we're going to beat the brakes off these football teams.
Right.
But I'm telling you, Auburn has moments, have greatness. And like I said, with that defense staying intact, I feel like they're going to stay in this football game to the very end. And maybe, and that's what I'm looking at, is maybe a good break goes Auburn's way here.
And I don't know if you've heard any of this, Shay, but apparently, and let's hope, fingers crossed, this has come to an end. But down there at Auburn,
yeah,
for the last, really this year, I don't know how long, but I have heard it's like 2 different teams practicing. Mm-hmm. It's the offense and the defense, and they're just like totally
right.
You know, because one's DJ Durkin and one's Hugh Freeze, obviously, but hopefully that has come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. My only concern with that, Shane, because I've been wondering all this myself.
Yeah.
Right. But how much can you really rejuvenate an offense in a week's time? You know, if we had a bye week, which we get next week, I think it'd be a completely different story. I just don't know how much we can rejuvenate it in 1 week. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern. Now, it sounds like Ashton Daniels, DJ Durkin has come out and said that's going to be our quarterback. Does that give you more or less confidence in old Auburn?
It didn't move the needle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because maybe he's like incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, based on what we saw last week, I'm not saying he is, but I don't know. But so you think Vanderbilt's kind of like a wounded duck here, got their pride hurt, dropping in the playoffs?
Yeah, I just feel like, okay, it's Texas, right? On the road, Texas. But we got 2 home games in Tennessee. Tennessee's the one I've got circled, right? We're going on the road. We beat Tennessee. We're in the playoffs. They're not thinking about Auburn and Kentucky. That's not what they're thinking about, and they should be, because right now these 2 teams they're dangerous. You can't take your foot off the gas. There's never a bye week in SEC play. So I feel like that's kind of what we get here.
Well, Shane, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't believe I am, you've gotten every Vanderbilt game wrong this season, Shane. Even last week you picked them to beat Texas. Now you're flip-flopping and doing all kinds of craziness. So I say all that to say, Shane, come on with it. Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers, Cedric Alexander, lock of the week, Shane. All these narratives are BS. Vanderbilt 24, Auburn 14. I don't think Auburn can score.
That's fair. I'm just glad we didn't agree for once. I got to catch up. There is a part of this, Mike. I'm not going to lie. There is a part of me. I do this on the golf course. It's like when I get behind, I try doing shots I shouldn't do, and this may be one of them. But I really did go round and round on this one. This is why I gave it to Morristown Honda. It's because I mean, my first pick was Vanderbilt to win it, but then I was like, I don't know, man. I've been hearing some good things, and I'm sticking with it.
Cousin Tim says Shane plays golf in his flip-flops. Speaking of well done, Steven, who you got here? Speaking of old Hugh Freeze, Auburn at Vanderbilt. Steven, what a game here. I think it goes without saying Auburn's going to get an interim bump here. It's point spread 6.5 in favor. Oh, wait, maybe that's changed here. Auburn favored by, still 6.5. 45.5 is the over under. 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central on the SEC network. Who do you like here, Steven?
Mike, I have a completely random stat that I stumbled upon while I was researching this game. So I feel obligated to tell you that in 14 of the last 16 meetings between these two programs, Vanderbilt has scored less than 20 points against Auburn. They won 17-7 last year, so it doesn't really matter. I just find it interesting that when you look at the history, like getting to that 20-point mark has been a real barrier for Vanderbilt against Auburn. But that also brings me to the intrigue for this game, Mike, which is Auburn. Are they going to get a new coach bump? Now, we've seen that across, whether it's the SEC or other programs, new coach, interim coach, they change some things up, maybe some momentum, and they get a bump. And Auburn still has something to play for. They've got the bowl hopes out there. I know it's faint, but if they win this game, they at least have a fighting chance in the last couple of weeks. We kind of joked about it on Monday, but they've had about 80 play callers on the staff. It's not going to be a huge shift, but perhaps there is a bump there for Derek Nix as the play caller for the rest of the year. The other side of this is there is so much at stake for Vanderbilt. Trying to get into the playoff at 10-2, but you've got to win this one and take care of business against Kentucky to set up that showdown against Tennessee. So there is a lot at stake here for Vanderbilt, and certainly even though Auburn's way off the radar, they can play spoiler, they can get to a bowl game. I think the theme for this game really is offense. Because on one side has Diego Pavia, who stole Hugh Freeze's soul for a couple years, and you've got an Auburn offense that is having trouble scoring touchdowns. When you look at Auburn this year in SEC play, Mike, two touchdown passes in SEC play this year. And going with Ashton Daniels this week, we'll see if anything changes from the Kentucky game. kind of skeptical. If we've seen Vanderbilt from a defensive perspective struggle this year, at times it has been in the secondary. Maybe there are some ways that they can get Singleton and Coleman more involved this week, but the overall theme is I think Vanderbilt's defense actually matches up well here in terms of trying to stop the run. I think the other side, though, and I think this is the matchup of Auburn's defensive front against Auburn's offensive line and Pavia is going to be fascinating because Auburn held this rushing attack to 84 yards last season. And we've seen when Vanderbilt's played Missouri, whether it's Texas, they have struggled against good fronts. No surprise. I mean, those are some of the best fronts in the country. But Auburn's pretty darn good here, too. So I think that's the challenge in this game for Vanderbilt is you've got Diego Pavia. He's probably the ultimate like wild card advantage that Vanderbilt has. But you've got to be able to hold up in the trenches a little bit better than you did against Missouri and Texas. So I think this game could look a lot like the Missouri game for Vanderbilt. It might not be pretty, and I think we're going to see a lot of low-scoring kind of battle in the trenches. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that. How many points do you think it's going to take for either team to win this game?
I might go like 17, almost because Vanderbilt won with 17 last year. But also, we saw Auburn 10-3 last week. I think Vanderbilt's offense is better than Kentucky. But it feels like 17-20 might get it done. The over-under sitting at 45. So 17-20 kind of seems like the range.
Well, and I think it's fair to kind of sit here and hope if you're an Auburn fan that getting rid of Freeze, believe me, you're gonna be well off in the long term. But how much can you really, blow up's the wrong word, but turn around the offense? It'd be so much better if there was like a bye week in between. But there's, you're going into Sunday's a weird day, and then your coach was fired. So, and I think it would also help Steven if I'm trying to think of the other fired coaches. So we've had Arkansas, LSU, Florida. What makes Auburn unique of the fired teams that have had their coach fired in terms of just offense, they're still unsettled at quarterback. Now, they've come out and said Daniels is going to start, and he may be the answer. I don't, Steven's never critical of these guys, and even he's like, that's the answer. I don't know. So again, is he the answer? Remains to be seen. I didn't see anything last week that suggested he was, but he was put in horrible spots to succeed. So hopefully he's better than he was last week. But the point being, Steven, where even the fired coaches, the teams that fired their coaches, they all had a quarterback, particularly LSU and Arkansas, that are veterans that can stabilize things, where we don't even have that to lean on at Auburn, and we don't have a bye week. So as much as I'd love to see Auburn come out here and sling it all over and showcase his talent, I don't know how realistic that is in such a short time. Is that fair?
It is. And I think that's one of my questions here is you're not going to be able to make wholesale changes if you're Auburn at this point, but also a coaching change can only cover up for the personnel limitations as well, too, because can you really change Daniels and Arnold in your offensive line out in 1 week? Is there, was there something just drastically schematically that Freeze was doing that was running the offense into the ditch, perhaps? I think an interim coach or interim coordinator, interim coach can always look at some new ideas and make some tweaks. But at some point, your personnel is just your personnel. And I think at that point, that's the big kind of factor working against Auburn is the offensive line's not very good and the quarterback situation is not very good either. It's hard to overcome both of those and a coaching change in 1 week.
Right. So, you got that. I also have been wondering all week about Vanderbilt, Steven, if last year, not nearly as potent of an offense as they are this year. So, I mean, maybe it's not fair to compare to last year because I think they've taken great strides, but they really kind of petered out down the stretch. and depth was tested, and once the injury started to mount, they could never. They looked a lot better in the bowl game. I'll give them that, but they had time off there. But by the end of the regular season, it seemed like they were a shell of what they were. I'm slightly concerned we could be getting back to that, to where we're still building a program, and I think we're far from where we want to be if we're in Nashville. Do you think that's fair?
I think the big difference to me from last year to this year is just that Diego Pavia is way healthier. It seems like, at least from the outside. I think it was clear last year that he was fighting something, and the offense reflected that. They did average almost 6 yards of play in their last 4 games. So I wonder if this is less about, I don't think people have figured out Vanderbilt. I think it's almost like the defenses got tougher down the stretch, because you look at that first half of the season, Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Georgia State, Utah State. Then you ran into the heart of SEC play with Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas. I mean, those are 4 of the better fronts or defenses in the SEC. So I think this is more about running into good defenses. And that's kind of the battle on Saturday. Is for all the problems that Auburn has, this defense is one of the better groups in the SEC. And seeing Pavia and Tim Beck go against this Auburn defense is kind of a must-see battle for me this weekend. Not expecting a ton of points. And frankly, if you're Vanderbilt, if you could find a way to scratch like 2 touchdowns on the card, that might be enough given the way Auburn has been playing offensively.
Mm-hmm. All right, Steven. So who you got winning this matchup? Does Vanderbilt keep their playoff hopes alive, or does Auburn come alive post Hugh? What if they never lose another game after getting rid of Hugh Freeze? That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
We need to put him on the worst coaching tenure list up there with Chad Morris for fumbling all this talent. Mike, I think easy way to look at this. I like Auburn's defense. I think they are going to make it tough. But at the end, one team has Diego Pavia, and that is the difference. Vanderbilt's got something to play for. They're at home, low scoring-ish. So I like Vanderbilt 24, Auburn 17. Vanderbilt wins. Next week moves up the playoff rankings, beats Kentucky, and sits there at 9-2, going into the Tennessee game for a chance to make the playoff.
Multiple predictions in one. I like it.
Okay. That's a lot, wasn't it? It's like a buffet.